So once you have established on site, you have your plant facilities all there, you're ready to start doing some actual work. Um, you need to be the preliminary works, also known as enabling works, which are setting everything up ready for the main construction works. So that includes setting out, protecting existing services and trees, silt control, and then site clearance. So the preliminary works, as I mentioned before, setting out existing services, protection of trees, silt control and site clearance. So the site set out, oftentimes you'll get surveyors in to set out benchmarks or temporary benchmarks. So you'll set up a grid of temporary benchmarks around the site, which can be used when you're doing the actual construction to refer back to. So these temporary benchmarks need to be in safe places. They need to be out of the way that they're not going to get knocked over, but they also need to be close enough that people can actually access them when they're doing the surveying. This book here, Setting Out Procedures for Modern Built Environment, in the Unitech Library, is quite a useful book to use, showing the different things, different ways of setting things out. So here's an example. When you're setting out a slope, you usually have a set out peg at the top of the slope. So you can see they're going to be doing the cutting here, so the pegs are out of the way of where the construction is actually happening. So you'd have something like offset to edge, so 1 meter offset to edge. So the digger driver knows that he has to start digging there. He'd be using a batter board or GPS to figure out the slope of that and do it like that. Here's a fill being constructed. Once again, you'd have the set out pegs there, you'd have a distance to the toe of the fill, and then he'd just keep on constructing up, doing it. Nowadays GPS means that it's much easier, and sometimes you don't need set out pegs. You can just use GPS to determine what you should be doing. Likewise, a building, so you can see this guy's setting out a house, so there's going to be a house going in the middle of there. These site boards here allow them to put nails in, and then they put string lines across. So this is the old school way of setting out buildings and stuff, just setting up these profile boards to be able to put string lines in and then mark out the dimensions of the building. And you can see this curb and channel here, they've got the set out pegs along there. So those set out pegs will say what 100 mils to edge of curb, and it will also show the level for the foundation. So once they've done the foundation, it's just a matter of going through the machine. So set out is really quite important. One of the things we need to do as engineers is build stuff in the right place, and setting out is an essential part of doing that. Another thing we need to do is tree protection. If trees need to be removed, then we remove them, but sometimes they need to be protected, in which case you need to do it properly. The important part of the root system extends right out to what's called the drip line. So you can see the edge of the trees there, that's called the drip line. So that is the area that needs to be protected, not just the trunk. You can see these guys here have are protecting the tree, or they've dug around, and once again they've dug out around the drip line. So if you can protect the roots within the drip line, then the tree's probably going to be okay. And what you're trying to protect them from is trucks and stuff banging them, but also if you've got trucks or cars parked underneath it, they can leak oil, which can also damage the tree as well. So that's why you put a fence around it, basically just showing people don't park around here. Another thing you need to protect is underground services, and you can see from this picture here that most sites have quite a lot of underground services. The last thing you want to be doing is digging up existing services. And there's different ways of locating them because they're underground, they're very hard to pick. A good way is looking at the manholes, the surface features. So most pipelines, for example, are straight. So if you look at a manhole in one place and a manhole in the other, draw a line between them, that's probably where the pipe runs. Likewise with valves, and they'll show you where the water main lies. And you can also look at the same thing for cabling. When you've actually figured out where they are, you should be checking using potholing. That means you're sort of going down, either digging manually or digging very carefully with a digger. Another way of doing it is to use water blasting to blast it open, because the last thing you want to do is damage it when you're digging it up to find out where it is. You can also use detectors. So electric cables emit an electromagnetic field which can be picked up with things on the surface. So you can see this guy here is actually using that to locate telecom and other cables. Pipes, unless they're metal pipes, aren't really detectable like that. So oftentimes they'll put what's called a sonde down. That's a sonde, which emits an electromagnetic pulse, and once again you can pick it up with a detector. Then you'd go down, you'd dig down and find the thing, mark it, and make sure that it is protected when you're doing the work. So that can be stakes, just showing people where it is, or it can be fences or barricades. And lastly, before you start digging everything up, you need to put silt control in place. Before you start removing the soil and start causing erosion, you need some way of trapping the silt, stopping it from going off site. So that's why you put in these silt fences, sediment ponds as well. We'll be looking at sediment control in much more detail in later videos.